It is said that practice makes perfection, so let's perfect our practice. Hi, my name is Peripherals. I've hit Radiant using only the Chamber Deagle, peaks at around 700 RR Radiant, and consistently have over 40% headshot in Immortal 3-2 Radiant lobbies, with an average of 400 to 500 RR. And today I'm going to detail what I have learned from my 7,000 hours of playing competitive FPS games, as well as share and explain my aim training routine. As a disclaimer, before Valorant I had around 3,000 hours in CSGO with no real aim training experience outside of the workshop maps. I put around 800 hours in aim training alone over the course of the 2 years since the release of Valorant, which averages to around an hour per day. And I have also put around 1,500 hours of playtime in Valorant, which at least 2/3 is playing chamber with the heavy use of the headhunter. The point I'm trying to get across is that regardless of what guide you follow, consistency over an extreme amount of time gives results. Overtraining in a short period of time will only result in physical and mental burnout rather than exponential results. There is no get good quick schemes unless your genetics are very good to begin with. With the disclaimer out of the way, the video layout will be as such. Peripherals, in which I'll go over the external factors such as mouse, mousepads, sleeves, monitors, desks, and posture. Aiming mechanics, in which I'll break down aiming into 4 basic motions that we do. Flicking techniques, tracking techniques, and how those incorporate into my playlist. It is recommended to watch the entire thing from beginning to end, as I will go over a lot of obscure and overlooked factors in this very comprehensive guide. However, there should be timestamps in the description if you want to skip to specific parts. Also, there should be standalone videos of just my aim routine or just the peripheral section on my channel too. Let's start with peripherals. When speaking about peripherals, we'll start with electronics. A monitor between 27 and 32 inches are all good picks. A large monitor with 2K resolution can enlarge targets, making them easier to identify at range without you having to sit closer and ruining your eyes, or having to play true stretched to make the targets bigger. A mouse between 40 to 80 grams are all good choices. It must be comfortable to claw grip. Wireless is preferred as wire can produce random friction. A claw grip puts distance between your palm and fingers so that you can manipulate the mouse with your fingers for micro adjustments, rather than just with your wrist and with your arms only if you are palm gripping. For more information, please reference this video by Proter in the description below. He is a really great source of information on aiming. Remember to disable Windows mouse acceleration and to not use raw Excel or any other form of mouse acceleration, as it does not influence the difficulty of your shots. Rather, it just uniforms the size and shapes of targets regardless of the range. This is rather difficult to understand, so for more questions, please refer to this video by Proter, where he talks about raw Excel's math and how he breaks down that it's not worth it. In general, anything that influences your raw aim should be disabled, raw Excel or angle snapping, etc. Also, all reference videos will be in the pinned comment as well as in the description. Choose 1600 or 3200 DPI, as it has significantly less input delay for micro adjustments and is personally a really big game changer. For more information on DPI and input delay, please reference this video by Optimum in the description below. Posture is often neglected, and you guys probably game sitting like a turtle. Posture is very fundamental to your aim. Trying to aim better with bad posture is like planting a seed in barren soil and expecting it to grow. Plant your feet on the floor firmly. Your legs should bend at a 90-degree or greater angle so that your feet takes on part of your body weight rather letting your spine take the whole weight alone. This will gain you more stability as well as give you better health long-term overall. Gently lean against the seat. Straighten your back and your neck. Push your chest out and ensure that your neck is not extending forwards. When looking straight ahead, 1/4 of your monitor should be above your eyes and 3/4 below your eyes. Slightly tilt the monitor upwards if needed. Your upper arms should make an angle at around 35 degrees between it and your torso, with your forearms comfortably resting on the desk. If this is not possible, then you should lower your desk. This will ensure enough space for your arms to move around. Once you have settled into a comfortable position, do not change your posture, desk height, or chair height. For more information, please reference this arm guide made by Rambo Kim and posture guide made by FishyChair in the description below. Speaking of arms, sleeves can be good. If it's too cumbersome or hot for you, invest in a larger mouse pad. I highly recommend control pads such as the Razer Gigantus. You do not want your arms to rub up against the desk, as sweaty skin creates a lot of friction against wood or plastic tabletops. If that is not possible, tape down clean A4 paper on the areas that your mousepad cannot reach to reduce the friction of your arm. You really don't want to be aiming with your arm entirely off the table either, as it's very tiring and lacks stability. Okay, with peripherals out of the way, let's talk about the act of aiming itself. Aiming in general can be broken down into 5 segments. Step 1, recognition, where you react to seeing the enemy, recognize where the head is, and get ready to react. Step 2, prediction, where by playing the game so much, if the enemy is moving in a specific pattern, such as 80-80 strafing or wide swinging, you will be able to subconsciously estimate where the enemy will stop moving. For example, most people wide swing similar length before they stop, as once they react to you, they will stop moving to take a shot. The average high elo player's reaction time is around 180 to 200 milliseconds, plus ping and time to aim and stop moving, it comes usually around 400 to 500 milliseconds after you initially see them that they will start slowing down and take a shot. The time where they slow down is your best time to begin to aim or to do your final micro adjustments as they have slowed down. However, understanding intuitively and being able to recognize when they are about to slow down is a skill you need to develop. By the end of this step, your brain should have subconsciously processed the distance between your crosshair to the enemy. Step 3, flicking, where you cover the initial area between your crosshair and a static target. Since the enemy has slowed down greatly, and flicking is a very fast motion, you can essentially treat the enemy as a static, still target, as he will not be moving very much for the time it takes for you to flick. Flicking is usually performed in 2 flicks. One initial flick where you travel the large distance between your crosshair and the enemy that is done by your arm and wrist, and a second flick that makes a fine adjustment to the enemy's head using fingertips and wrist mainly. By the end of this stage, you should be on target. Step 4, click timing, where you identify whether you are on target or not before firing. It's basically not clicking too early or too late during your flick motion. This is what separates a calm control flick from a wild RNG shot. With Snowy's technique, which will be discussed later, you should ensure that you are actually on target before firing. If not, just readjust quickly. This concept is discussed in this video by Valkie, who is really an incredible source for aiming mechanics. Step 5, tracking. If needed, you will continue to track the enemy's movement to engage in a spray down. Against faraway enemies or enemies 80-80 strafing, it's best not to track, but rather to reset your aim and to flick again. Do note that not all fights requires flicking or tracking. With good crosshair placements, one only needs to line up its crosshair from very far from a wall and click as the enemies come in. This is not to say that crosshair placement is separate from aiming. No, it's a part of aiming. It's a tool that makes you essentially need to aim less. However, it will not be discussed in this guide, as this guide is about raw aiming alone. While recognition and prediction are mostly skills gained with experience in the game, by playing more and DMing more, you will begin to recognize heads faster and visualize them as orbs like in aim trainers and develop a subconscious feel as to when the enemy will stop moving. When it comes to flicking and tracking, aim trainers can be a great way to improve. For essential information on the responsibility of each body part like arm, wrist, fingers, and other general aim training techniques, please reference these videos made by FPSTammy. In my routine, I've included 2 playlists, one for static, one for dynamic. They're meant to be played alternating between days to avoid burnout while covering all areas with intensity. This means that if you're playing static today, you should be playing dynamic tomorrow, and then static the day after tomorrow. There are 4 scenarios each, with an expectation to do 5 sets each. The first 3 scenarios being different areas of skills in flicking or tracking, and the last one being a dynamic scenario that mimics the real game to tie everything back together. Always remember to practice techniques that will be discussed below, or any other techniques that are proven. Training with a goal in mind is very huge. Never fall below 90% accuracy on static scenarios besides the Yay scenario, and never fall below 80% accuracy on Pasu in the dynamic playlist. When starting, accuracy is more important than speed, as speed can be trained by doing the same thing repeatedly, while accuracy can only be trained by slowing down speed. By doing the same accurate motions again and again, you can slowly push for better speed. However, if you only develop speed, you will have to later slow down to develop accuracy again. Remember, only perfect practice can produce perfect results. Please do remember that this playlist and advice are specifically geared towards Valorant, a game where very little vertical movement happens and horizontal movements are easy to read and generally quite slow, so it may not be the best for improving overall aim. This playlist hyper-focuses on areas relevant to Valorant movement and therefore forgoes many other important aspects of aiming. So for flicking, my flicking/static playlist covers a wide wall 5 target scenario for general mouse control for wider flicks, turning, clearing angles, etc. that combines wrist and arm movements. A pipe small target scenario for wrist and fingertip motions for fast micro adjustments. A tiny head-sized target scenario that focuses on fine movements and micro adjustments with the fingertips. A small target horizontally dynamic scenario that mimics in-game movements and target size, focusing on wider adjustments, fast adjustments, fine micro adjustments, as well as click timing, essentially tying everything back together. Flicking, in its essence, is the ability to correctly read the distance between your target and your crosshair, then precisely move your mouse a certain distance to cover that amount of in-game distance. For example, if the enemy is 12 centimeters away from my crosshair on my monitor, with practice, I can quickly move my mouse 6 centimeters to cover that distance. Although this may sound simple, when shown an image of a target and a crosshair to a random person, they will struggle to tell you how far away the target is from the crosshair. They will also struggle to move 6 centimeters off their mouse, even if told to do so. This is where practice and technique comes in. For flicking, the best technique so far is Snowy's technique, as shown in this video by VT Maddie, which will be in the description below. To sum it up, it tells you to start your flicks with high initial speed, then slow it down the closer you are to the target, so that you do not overflick, as it is very difficult to pinpoint the distance between your crosshair and the target at any given moment, let alone to move that precise distance every single time. It is important that our movements get slower the closer we are to the targets, so that we can tell whether we are on target or not, making click timing much easier. On top of that, Snowy's technique produces underflicks and eliminates overflicks. When you underflick, you fall short from the target, thus having to do a second flick to continue to travel in the same trajectory as you initially did until you reach the target. When you overflick, you went past the target and needs to go back the way you came. When looking at the total distance traveled, an underflick and readjustment travels far less distance than the overflick and readjustment, therefore actually being faster and more controllable, while on the surface looking more calm and slower. While looking at the best mechanical aimers such as Ye, Demon 1, Cryo, etc., all with very high headshot percentages, slowing their footage down to a quarter speed, it is clear that they either maintain the same velocity throughout the flick or slows down towards the end. With this in mind, attempt to replicate the same movement patterns while practicing. It may be very slow at the beginning, but keep in mind that as you master it, it will be a game changer. Tracking, my dynamic playlist covers a scenario with fast, small, horizontally moving targets to practice large flicks into fast tracking, like flicking onto a moving enemy and then spraying them down. A scenario with fast, large targets that moves mostly horizontally, but with some verticality, to practice close-range target switching. A pass-through scenario with evasive small targets moving at different speeds both horizontally and vertically, accelerating and decelerating at random. This trains you to recognize and pick out slow targets out of a bunch of fast ones, as to recognize when the enemy is slowing down in-game, as well as to train movement prediction based on the target's velocity, vertical and horizontal mouse control, and much more. This scenario is exceedingly hard, so don't worry if you can't even get 500 score at 70% accuracy at the beginning. Your click timing will improve exponentially the more you play this scenario. And of course, to top it all off, the Ye scenario from the static playlist to tie things back together again. When it comes to tracking, you essentially are estimating the velocity of the target and performing a uniform swipe across your mousepad at the same velocity as the target. To estimate the velocity of the target, you can gain this information from two sources. One from the pre-existing velocity that you observed the target to be traveling at, and the other from the distance from you to the target and game knowledge to know how fast the target can strafe. For example, generally speaking, when traveling at the same speed, a target can strafe faster, closer up, than further away. Once this information is known, simply smoothly swipe your mouse that matches the same pace as the target to get a perfect beam. One common problem is jittering, where your mouse can't perform a very smooth swipe without shaking, in which case it's usually a sensitivity issue. For more information on tracking, please reference this video by Struth Gaming, which covers nearly all the basics of tracking. A technique used on evasive targets that frequently changes direction is called edge tracking, where you track the edge of the target that is opposite to the direction of which the target is moving. This way, when the target reverts directions, you lose this minimal time off target when reacting to that change in direction. This video by Silky Crisp explains it perfectly, and it will be in the description below. Another really simple technique will be to use your eyes to focus on a target. Now, this sounds really dumb and really simple, but you'd be surprised how much you're missing by not doing it properly. Now, this is more relevant to games that requires prolonged tracking such as Apex, however can still be applied to general aiming in Valorant. By hyper-focusing on a target, your caveman lizard brain kicks in and subconsciously coordinates your hand to aim at them with relative ease. This is gained from centuries of your ancestors throwing stones and spears and bows at different things. For reference on how to use your eyes properly, please reference this video by Struth Gaming in the description below. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking with me all the way through. In other videos, I'll go more in depth into specific techniques and in-game applications, such as when to tap or spray, when to crouch, crosshair placement, and all that. But this is as far as this video will go. I understand that to a lot of advanced players or aim trainer players, this may seem really simple or partially incorrect. However, as a general guide to consistent aim improvement, I think this is a nice accumulation of information to help players with direction in their training.